Welcome, welcome. We're about to start in just a second.
Yay!
If you're watching us live, please say hello in the chat and let us know where you're from so that we can see the people are on.
And say hello by giving your permission to StreamYard, right? So we can see who's there?
Yes. Go to streamyard.com/Facebook.
See? All right. It's going to be 30 degrees here today.
Hello. Let us know that you're here live in the chat, and we're just about to get started.
Haven't we already started?
We've always started.
Yeah, we've already started.
Hi, Andre.
Hi, Tara. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. We're in the same locale again.
I know. So
Crazy, huh?
welcome to Mondays with Tara and André.
Hello.
If you're new to the group or new to watching us here, we come live here every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern,
we sure
daylight
do.
time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so if you can't join us live, you can always watch the replay. It's always in the group.
And in the guides.
And in the guides. Yes,
see?
in the group.
I'm learning by process.
Yeah. So introductions.
Yeah. I'm Andre Turcotte, sex positive psychotherapist, and my wonderful companion here is
Tara Lynn Franco, relationship and awesomeness coach.
That's right.
We're broadcasting here from Montreal, Quebec, Canada.
Yeah.
So please say hello in the comments if you haven't already. Let us know where you're joining us from. And if you haven't already, please give permission to StreamYard to see your name so that we're not seeing, I see Drungs here and Debbie. I see a Facebook user.
So do you have to give permission to StreamYard each and every time?
No, just
one time.
Okay. So this Facebook user, we can just see Facebook user because we're using a different platform.
Right. So how would somebody go about giving permission to it? Because I think it was rather complicated. Could you explain it again?
You just go to streamyard.com/Facebook. The link is always in the event posting.
All right.
And just click on it and you just say yes to give the permission to see.
Yeah, see, it did sound complicated.
So it's not complicated.
No, it's not complicated at all. I tend to complicate things, but no, I think we should be able to.
So today, let's get on to today's topic.
Let's do it.
We're going to have a little bit of an announcement, but so today we're talking about getting more of what you want in your life and relationships.
Yeah, is it more love? Is it more sex? Is it more connection? Is it more security in relationship? Whatever the more might be for you.
Yeah.
Or in some cases, it might be even less of things that you're not wanting, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So
yes.
Basically, we want to get to what might be called a homeostatic state, which is, you asked me not to say, but I said it anyway, homeostasis. So what it really is a fancy word to say that we don't want to have too much of one thing and not enough of another thing. We want to put that needle somewhere in the comfort zone in the middle. So I don't want to feel like I have too many feelings that I feel overwhelmed, and I don't want to have too few feelings or I feel underwhelmed, right? So a longing for something, a desire for something, a hunger for something, my needle is too far to the need and want of, or I've already been saturated. I've already got too many things on my plate and I feel I've overwhelmed with that amount. So I want to bring it back to the comfort zone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So let us know in the comments. We'd love to know what you want more of or less of, or what you want to be more in balance, I guess it could be. So speaking about more, I think, there's lots of people that are coming into the group that are new and may not be aware that we actually have a group program called Polyamory and Open Relationship Mastery.
Yeah.
And so basically this is a step-by-step plan for mastering your open or polyamorous relationships. So there's still time to join us.
Right.
We'd love to get people in this month and get you guys going because, September's coming and school and all that. And and then next thing you know, it's going to be Thanksgiving and then it's going to be Christmas where you're spending time with family and stuff. And you want your relationship to be in a good place.
Yeah. How long are you going to wait until it is in a good place?
Exactly.
But yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is that step-by-step that we're going to go through in the program. It's really finding ways to navigate open relating in a successful way, minimizing, getting less resistance and more satisfaction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you'll learn how to communicate, which is something
More
we're talking about today. We go over attachment, we go over relationship styles, working through jealousy and insecurity and all the things that people tend to come up. So like the main things. So yeah. So by the end, you're feeling awesome. So speaking about awesome,
Yes.
Let's get on to today's topic. So when we talk, you did talk a bit about it, but when we talk about getting more, what do we exactly mean by that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, the thing is, it's part of a 4-step process, right? That some people refer to as the cure. And the step 1 part, getting more of, well, what is it that I want more of? So the first part is knowing, I'm getting too fast ahead again.
Yes, you're getting too fast
slow
ahead.
Slow
so
down.
Let's slow down. So I think when we're talking about more, we're meaning that, and we're not just talking about more sex, we're talking about, and it's not bad to want more either.
No,
but you may be feeling something like a bit of a deficit in your relationship, or something's missing, or like you said, a lot of times I think when people open up previously monogamous relationships, for example, they may find like it's all excitement, but then there's something happening within your pre-existing relationship that might feel not quite right, or you might not be missing, you might be missing something. That sort of thing. So, or maybe just all as well, and you want more of something or less of something.
Sure. Well, like you said, the sex, for example, you might be having a fair amount of sex. What is the quality of that sex? How does it leave you feeling afterwards? Are you feeling satisfied? Do you feel as though you are connected? Do you know that your partner is feeling satisfied and connected as well, right? Because usually we're talking about sex with outside of ourselves, right? But even self-pleasuring, right? Where am I on that? And can I get greater levels of satisfaction, more satisfaction?
I'm all for more pleasure. And I think what commonly happens is people say, well, I'm with my nesting. If you have a nesting partner, when you're opening up, I'm with them all the time. Like we spend a ton of time together. And one person's like, but I just don't feel it. And it's usually because there might be a deficit in quality time. You might be spending and making dates and fun things with other people, but not doing with others.
Yeah. I read a study this morning that was indicating people's level of loneliness. And they said that very often the people who indicate to be the most lonely, the loneliest, are people in committed relationships. Even though they are physically represented by being connected, they often feel as though they are separate from that person, or the time spent together is superficial or minimal.
Or you're spending all your time talking about the kids or the finances or the household.
And we kind of get lost in that it of us, right? We become that we, and all of a sudden our individual part makes us feel as though we are outside of it and often feeling very isolated and alone. So we'll find ways to counter that.
So you're talking about the cure. So I think before we jump into each step, we should mention there's 4 steps to what you call the cure. So before we say why is it called the cure? I asked you that this morning, and I think it's important to give the definition.
Well, it's the cure in that it's a recipe, a formula, an antidote that could be applied to just about every aspect of your life. So any situation, we want to know what it is that would make us happy. And then we find a way of getting it. We're finding ways of being happy with it, if we are in fact happy with it. And then if so, how to keep that or how to increase the pleasure. But really, it is important to understand it, know it, because it is applicable to many and all areas of our life.
Okay, so let's go over the 4 steps, just name them out really quickly, and then go into each one a little bit more in detail. So the first step, knowing
what it is you're wanting, right?
Yep.
So we're not going to go into just
list them first.
Knowing what it is, knowing what
you
wanting,
want, finding a way of having it,
getting it, and being happy having it.
Okay, so one more time. Knowing it is what you want,
finding a way of getting it, and being happy having it.
Okay.
Sounds simple enough, right? And it is.
So let's start with knowing what you want. I'm sorry, I want people to repeat it because it's probably a new concept to some people not hearing this, that there's actually 4 steps.
Absolutely. We cannot go through these things enough. Absolutely. We can always, slow it down and
Okay.
So step 1, knowing what it is you want. Now, this is critically important because this is where we're going to gather the data and inform ourselves as to what would make us happiest. What do we feel is going on right now? Do I have too much in the way of work and family obligations, all these other things? Am I being overrun by them, overwhelmed by them? I'm having too much of this feeling and I want to have less, I want to have more serenity. Or do I feel as though there's something missing in my relationship, something missing in my sex life, something missing in the emotional, spiritual part of my life, and I need more of that? So I want to first become introspective to the point where I become self-aware. Because when I have gathered that data, then I can go into step 2.
Yes, but before we get into step 2, if it is a feeling that you're wanting, it's very important to get, what does that mean? What is the specifics around that? So you say, for example, Drang brought up a thing like more unconditional love, right? Okay, that's amazing. I would love more unconditional love, but I would need to understand from you, what exactly does that mean for you? Like if it's a feeling you're trying to elicit, what would help get you that feeling? So that's part of knowing what it is you want. And I think for some people, it's really hard to nail that down.
Sure.
You know, I think a lot of people say, well, I just don't know what I want. So what do we do if we don't know what we want?
Well, then we start to explore. We start asking ourselves more open-ended questions, or we ask it of our partner, right? So who, what, where, when, how. We want to know, well, what would make me, well, say, for example, I want more love. Okay, that's great. That's valid. You want more love. What does love mean to you? How would it express? How would it be expressed? Is it the love of a puppy? Is it love of your coworkers? Is it the love of your lover? So we are going to find ways of defining that so that we can later articulate that. We want to be able to share this data, this information, because in sharing it, we open up the possibility to receive it.
Yeah, and it also depends on how, if you're using love as an example, it's like, what are your love languages? So different people receive love in different ways. So, I mean, I had a client, we were talking the other day, and they are very much, they love physical touch, but their partner is, they give acts of service. So they say, oh, I do love you. I show it in the way that I do this for you. I take care of the kids. I do all this. But they're like, but yeah, I really just want you to touch me or to be like physically present with me. That would mean, not that the other things are wrong, but it's like understanding what exactly it is that we want people to say or do, or what do we need to say or do, for ourselves. So, so if they don't know, it's like exploring. So you can do some research, because I think that's common, right? People say, well, I don't really know what I want.
Yeah, absolutely. But they might say that they don't know what they want, but somewhere inside them, they actually know what they want. So the people we work with have all the answers. We just have to help them find their way to it.
Well, that's the tricky part, because there's layers and layers of things on top of it that often I think we filter. Hello, someone's saying hello, fabulous people. We filter ourselves a lot in terms of what we want, because we may layer on things like guilt, or I shouldn't ask for it, or I'm being selfish, or all those things. Like I hear that so much.
It makes me think of, I just had a date yesterday with a nice person, and my profile states that I am ENM, ethically non-monogamous. And they wrote back, they said, I know what ENM is. I never felt that I could say it comfortably. I always thought that it would be rejected. And it's so interesting, right? That idea of expression. Can we feel justified in our position? Can we announce it? And it's so interesting because it made me think how I at one point also felt like, what are they going to say when they find out that I'm not wanting to subscribe to this mono model? And it became rather, I was tentative about expressing it. And now I feel as though it is my obligation, it's my duty to be upfront about it and say, I'm not looking for monogamy. So if that's what you're looking for, we need to discuss that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. We might at first feel as though it's we're kind of like on unsure ground about announcing our position, but in time, as we articulate, as we demonstrate it, we come to find out that it is valid. We can do this, and we become more and more acquainted with it. We become more comfortable with announcing our position, and that's really what it's all about, right? It's being able to articulate our positions.
But some of it's a process, though. It's a process of feeling comfortable and feeling safe, even if you've been with someone for a very long time. Like I'm working with some people, and we're practicing saying, if I'm vulnerable and open with you, will I be safe? Because they know that their partner's safe, but it's the very act of saying that they want to actually feel it within them. Right. But you were,
and you're absolutely right, because it might be that our history with previous partners, our family, or even with that current partner may not necessarily have the indications of safety. And we might have to build those parts where we do feel safe enough to express that.
Or it does, and they're just scared, like they could just be scared from not anything related to that partner at all. In this case, it's related to previous relationships with family and that sort of thing, not being able to be vulnerable and show their emotions, right?
Well, then that speaks to the possibility of dependence and codependence, speaks to attachment issues, there's a whole bunch of things. So we want to find out what's at play, right? So we can come to, so we look at the defenses and the resistance. We look at the defense and the resistance, and we find out how we'll be able to work with that and overcome it.
Exactly. So speaking of what you want and need, one of the things, since this is a group about polyamory and open relationships, is one of the things you may want to define for yourselves at the beginning and throughout a relationship is what kind of non-monogamous relationship you want to have. Like you were talking about that just a moment ago, like how many partners, what kinds of agreements would you like? These are all the things that come into play when you're, you know, when you're either opening up an existing relationship or you meet someone new or introducing new people to relationships and that sort of thing.
So 3 things I want to say about that. One, we are plastic and will often change, right? So what I say I want today may not necessarily be what I'm wanting tomorrow, or what I wanted yesterday, which speaks to consent. So I might say I want this certain thing, that's fine. But at any point, I may say, you know what, I no longer want this thing. I want to take back my consent. And that is always valid. It's never, come on, babe, just a little bit longer, anything like that. We have to respect that because it is the platform of trust. And if we don't have trust, it's not going to really work, right?
Yeah. Well, it's the same in our relationships.
Absolutely.
Like we may have decided a certain thing when we first started, and then we've evolved to something very different now.
Right. So listen to your feelings, right? Listen to your intuition. Listen to that voice that's talking to you, and speak your position.
Exactly. So we would love to know in the comments what it is, if you feel comfortable actually announcing what it is that you want. Yeah. So tell us, a big yes if yes, or a thumbs up, or a happy face, or something.
A question for you though, I'm curious now. So if you could look back to when, say, I'll take our example, the example of us for an example. Could you look back at where we first started dating? I guess it was about 35, 40 years ago, it seems. How the relation, your expectation of what you imagine you wanted, and is it consistent with where you're at today, or has it shifted over time?
Oh man, it's like completely shifted. I think, you know, when we first started, it was more of an exploration. I mean, I really didn't know what I wanted. I just liked the idea that we were going on a bit of a journey together. You know, like some of the things I wanted at the beginning was, you know, I've always been attracted to women, and I hadn't really acted out on that very much. And so that was something I was interested in. And I think, you know, being with you, people know if they've watched any of our lives before, I think brought out something in me where I felt more free to express my sexuality and like embody that. And I think that's just grown over time. You know, I just turned 50, and I was like, we're talking to some people, and I was like, I really came into my own in my 40s, like later 40s, not even beginning 40s, like once we met. So, and then now it is quite different. Like I never imagined we'd have the kinds of relationships we have now.
Yeah. The
what
reason,
about you?
Similar, but the reason why, but I already knew I was into women. But the reason why I asked that is because I want to remind the people listening that we are not static, right? We are plastic. We will move over time. And many of the things may remain constant, but we might also move in directions that might even surprise ourselves. Remain open to it and be true to yourself and expressing it, which comes down to the idea of communication. Yeah.
So after all this time, do you feel comfortable announcing what it is you want with me? Put him on the spot.
Yeah. Do I feel comfortable? Yes. You are very receptive to communication, and I appreciate that in you. And I think that we both speak from positions of not only honesty, but consideration of the other as well. And that means that not that I'm going to refrain from saying my position, but that the way I announce it is also said in a loving way, right? I spoke to a long-term couple the other day, asking them about it, and I think I've mentioned this before. And one of the keys they say to their relationship is that they consider what it is they're going to say and how they're going to say it to the partner, and how would they feel if their partner were to say something similar to them. So that consideration is, I think, a beautiful gesture of generosity, right? So, they know that they hold their partner in high admiration, in high esteem. They would never want to do anything that would hurt their partner. But at the same time, they want to be able to express themselves, and they do. But it's the way in which they communicate, and that's critically important as well.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, I feel pretty comfortable. You didn't ask me, but I feel pretty comfortable announcing what it is I want. And I also feel that we have really good open dialogue and able to talk about things that maybe are a little more difficult or uncomfortable, or where we're experiencing feelings, that sort of thing. And so that's a good segue into number 2.
But before we go there, if I may, the practice of this self-awareness at first may seem awkward, difficult, even like, why bother? Like, this is a lot of malarkey. But as you do it more and more, you become more self-aware, and it becomes quicker and more fluid to do that. So the other day I had a thought, and it was not serving me well, but I had it, and it was a little bit uncomfortable. But then I started to do some of the things that we speak about. What did I have to counter that thought? Was I being objective about it? What was my motive in it? Where were my fears? What was my security issues? All these things. And then I came to really unpack it rather quickly. And then it's like, wow, you know what? It's not as big and scary and as threatening as I imagined. And we were able to communicate it. And I think that's wonderful. Yeah.
I do love that. Well, it's why, okay, so number
the willingness to communicate, yes.
Yeah, so number 2 is finding a way of having it. So this is where communication plays in. Right. We've said it before.
So step 1, knowing what it is we're wanting, and then step 2, finding a way of getting it. So how am I going to get it? Well, I'm going to have to let it be known as to what it is that would make me happiest.
Yeah.
So I'm going to communicate those thoughts and feelings, those desires, those feelings of, having too much or too little. I'm going to find ways to communicate that.
Yeah.
Which goes to our communication styles, right?
Yes, communication styles. And it's, I think we said it up the top. It's kind of hard sometimes to express what it is you need, as we may worry what the other person's going to think.
Initially.
We might feel guilty. We might feel, the other part is, or that we might not be heard, based on some of our past experience. Right. So,
well, the idea of being heard, right?
Yes.
So am I listening? Am I listening to understand? So we know that very often in communicating styles, we're having a dialogue, and you say something, and right away I think, oh, I want to respond to it. I want to say something. And as soon as I'm holding that position, it's almost like going to the bathroom. It's all I can think about. I got to go. I want to tell you my answer. I've stopped listening.
Yeah.
So are we listening to understand? Are we able to hold and tolerate our feelings long enough to hear the other person? But how do I know that I'm listening? Well, I might reiterate what you said. So yes. Tara, I heard you say that, or I believe you said this, or I think, if I understand you correctly, whatever it is, and I will regurgitate it, and then I can check in with you. And
you're like, and did I get that right?
Did I get that right? And you're like, well, you sort of did, but, the dinosaur was blue and not yellow, whatever it was. And you can help me to come to that position so we can understand each other and speak each other's language in that way, right? So it's a good way of checking in. But as we practice this, like other things, we become more acquainted with it, and we become better listeners. And when we are better listeners, we invite our partners to be better listeners as well.
I think the other thing people tend to do is they try to unpack too much. That's
stacking.
Stacking all the things.
Yeah.
And then if the other person is not actively listening, then they'll pick the first thing that they didn't like, and then they'll fixate on that.
Right.
So it's why in Polyamory Mastery, the first module we go through is on communications, because it sets the groundwork for everything else that you work on. And there's actually a process that we learned in a program that we are taking called ACT, so attunement communication training. And so we run you through this, and it seems, like you said, a bit foreign to practice this, but I'm telling you, like, initially I've done this with some couples before, and it's amazing how well they're now communicating based on this process, where one person is sharing, the other person is reiterating, and then you're carrying on doing one thing at a time. That's the thing.
I think those are really great points, and I would agree with you. The issue with stacking is, even if you wanted to be that sponge and take it all in, how could you possibly, right? So as the person who's sharing that, as the orator, we have to be cognizant of the idea that we will resist wanting to give them all of the 10 points all at once. Let's see if we can slow it down and talk about it one point by one point, and really find out that we do have those understandings to it, right? But again, it might seem foreign, right? Very few conversations ever go that way. It is theoretical to a big part, but as we practice it, as we become more acquainted with it, we will automatically start to adopt these positions. And what will happen is we will communicate better, and it's more likely to have fewer miscommunications, and we will most likely be able to open up the possibilities of receiving what the things we're wanting and our partner are wanting.
Yeah, I like what Drang wrote here. It's that we have selective hearing. We're caught up in our own stuff. The other thing that happens sometimes, I think, when we get into habits that aren't great around communication, is that we also are judging things. So the thing about listening and, someone sharing is that we don't have to agree with someone, but we do need to listen and listen to understand, like you said, and, not judge what's being said. So as soon as we layer our own judgments on top of it, it also is another blockage to listening, and, because, we could disagree on something,
for sure.
But if you feel heard in what you said, then that's better than not feeling heard and us getting an argument because we disagree on this point.
No doubt. That whole idea of stacking becoming oversaturated or having these disagreements that we may at times never come to resolution, those are fine. But I think it's important that we also have the agreement that we will at times be willing and able to go into recess about it, right? So we want to continue investigating, but at some point we might become oversaturated and we might ask, can we just pause this for a moment or two? But it's the demonstration of willingness to come back to it and talk about it, even if it's difficult, even if we're not going to necessarily agree on it. Can we be caring participants in the sharing process? Because it is a relationship, right? We're both in there, or many of us are in there, and we want to be heard and seen. So it's
I'm seeing people are really resonating with the stacking thing. I think we all do that, especially when our emotions are elevated. I've definitely, and this and this and this, and then bringing up the past, and then when you did this and that sort of thing. So even if you're using when this happens, I feel this, if you start layering and stacking, it's like, you don't get very far.
Right.
So so I'm curious to know if people, I love that people are commenting. We love when you give us comments in the chat. It gets us excited and revved up for our talk. Oh my goodness, it's loud here today. But let us know in the chat if you find it easy to communicate your needs. You can type in easy or hard or I don't like to. I mean, one of the things I used to have a hard time communicating in terms of my needs was things around sex and pleasure, because you don't, you're like, oh, should I say something? What if they think, oh, I don't like them or they're doing a bad job. And we put all these things on it.
Am I being selfish? Am I taking, all those things. Yeah, for sure. Or even, I've heard many people with vulvas say, well, it's not ladylike, or good girls aren't supposed to want sex, or whatever it is, whatever the script is. Or guys, right, they might have this whole set of beliefs as well.
And then you might wish that you're like, oh, I wish they would do this, but you don't want to say it, sort of thing. And then I had an instant, we were in a group situation and somebody was verbalizing their needs, and I was like, wow, I should do that more. Like they were totally owning that. I'm like, yeah. And then it came to me that, our partners want us to have pleasure. They want to know what we want and what we need. You know what I mean? And so I think people are more open to receiving that than we imagine.
Right.
So
No, I was just looking at the comments. Somebody said there's a muscle that I'm building. And yes, absolutely. It is a muscle. The more we flex it, the more we tone it, the stronger it becomes, the more we become acquainted with it, more accepting it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which leads us into someone right, woohoo. Rev it up.
I think that was the motorcycle passing by.
Oh, that was the motorcycle.
Maybe.
We said rev
or
up.
maybe we get revved up.
Yeah.
We do get revved up talking about this.
We
get very excited about this.
So let's talk about getting it. Getting it. Yeah, this is where the receiving part comes in that you were just talking about. So many of us aren't great at receiving. So let us know in the chat as well if you're open to receiving and getting what you want. So you can drop it 1 for yes, a 2 for sometimes.
So what's an example?
A 3 for no, or just
how about a quick example of receiving it, right? So I say I want to be in a loving relationship with somebody, and I communicate that, and voila, I find that somebody. And then all of a sudden, they're in my life, and I start feeling threatened. I feel like there's a noose around my neck, and I'm getting, kind of angsty, and I need to put on some space and stuff.
Or you're waiting for the next shoe to drop,
right.
I think, which is a common thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, am I comfortable actually receiving it, even though I said that's what I wanted? So if, for example, in that example that I was saying I wanted a partner and now feeling threatened by it, well, is it an indication of there being perhaps some issue with my attachment style, right? So am I now feeling anxious that the person is having me? Even though I said that, how will I be able to receive it? Am I comfortable? So I say, I don't have orgasm through penetrative sex. It's through oral sex. Can I ask for it? So I asked for it. Now I finally get the courage up, and now they are giving me the oral sex. Do I feel comfortable receiving it? Or is there an old tape saying, oh my God, I'm taking too long, or they're not enjoying it, or their poor neck, or whatever the story is, right?
Yeah.
So can you tolerate accepting? Sure, whatever we might tell ourselves, right? Yeah. So I mean, is it? Are there indications of other things going on that I feel codependent upon the person, or do I feel as though they're not going to want to be giving it? Am I feeling as though I'm not worthy of it? Whatever the thing is, it will inform us. So really what we want to do is we want to become aware then of the feeling states that's going on, find out what our motives are, what stops us from doing these things, so that we can really, truly receive in a loving and accepting way.
And I think the other part of that is the idea of abundance versus scarcity. So you want something, you may have decided there's a certain need you want, but then you might accept something that is less than or not what you actually truly want. Or you may, you hear people being in relationships where their needs aren't being met and they're communicating them and they just don't feel like they're being heard or the other person wants to do it, but they'd stay because they have there might be an idea of there being scarcity. So they might not think that they could find somebody who would be, thanks, it's getting dark in here. It's like a weird day.
Not a cloud in the sky, but it's getting dark.
I know. Yeah, so that idea. What do you think about that?
You know what? Quite honestly, I stopped listening. I got distracted.
By
I must admit.
The dark? Okay, that's cool.
Yep.
That's cool. I was talking about scarcity and abundance.
Isn't it great though? Right? I wasn't listening and I owned up to it. I told you, I'm sorry, I didn't hear your needs. I didn't hear what you were wanting to express to me. I was distracted. And I've acknowledged it. And then I invite you and myself to come back to it.
Okay.
Yeah. What happens, right? So I think it's beautiful that it happened, because what we talk about is the theoretical, right? We want to do this, but it is sometimes not so easy to practice it, but it needn't be practiced perfectly. The idea is that we have the intention, we have the desire, we have the longing to connect with each other because we want to be loving, good partners and lovers. So.
And the idea is practicing, and I think when we get on these lives, it happens all the time. You may be talking and I'm listening and I'm like looking at the notes and going like, oh, I don't want to make sure we miss this. So I miss sometimes what you say. So it's amazing that you I'm glad that you fess up to it. I don't always fess up to it. So maybe.
But right there is an admission of it.
Yeah, I guess.
You are. Yeah. No, you're great. Yeah, we do that. Yes, accountability is beautiful. Absolutely. I think it's wonderful because we stand before the person and say, look, I'm not perfect. I'm human. I'm trying my best. And what do you think about that? And the other person, for the most part, is always going to be like, that's wonderful. Like, let me see if I can meet you there as well.
Yeah,
so that's great.
I love this comment here by Facebook user. Receiving is when I'm genuinely curious and want to understand another versus taking the feedback personally. So that's an amazing point, is sometimes when someone's communicating to us, we listen to what it is that for the understanding part and, not taking it personally, right? You might say, oh, I want this certain thing. It doesn't mean that what I'm doing is wrong or
that you're insufficient or anything like that. You're simply talking about what your preference might be in these needs. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that comment.
Yeah, so try and resist personalizing it as though it's an indication of you're being deficient or something. It's really the other person trusting you enough to express what it is that they're wanting. Yeah.
Okay, so we did knowing what you want, finding a way to get it,
and being happy having it.
And now number 4 is being happy having it.
Right.
Yeah.
So you say there's
being
2
happy
parts.
having it.
Yeah.
Yes, 2 parts to that, I think. Is this bringing me what I wanted, or is there still something I'm looking for that is not yet realized?
Right. So I say I want a certain thing, and I'm able to communicate it, and it lands on my doorstep. But now, is it really the thing that I was hoping for? Is it really the thing that's making me happy?
And I think this happens to people when they open up an existing relationship. It's like that they want some variety or more sex or, whatever it is, right? And then, you get to the part where you have all that and it's not eliciting the feelings within yourself that you really wanted.
Right.
And you may find that what you were really looking for was more connection with people in general, more connection with your partner that you were already in a relationship with, or something else.
You want me to say something about that?
Well, the other part about being happy having it, we were talking about earlier because of the fitness example, right?
Oh, yes.
Is that someone says, oh, I have a goal. I want to lose 20 pounds. You know what I mean? And like, when I lose 20 pounds, I am going to be the happiest person. I'm going to be happy.
Everything will be great.
Everything's great.
Sure.
And then you work your ass off, you follow whatever plan, you do all the things, the other steps, and you get to that point where you've lost 20 pounds and you're like, I still feel the same inside. I don't feel good about myself, or it was really hard to get there. So am I happy having it? So that's that first part. You know, is it bringing me what I actually wanted? Well, what I really wanted was to feel good, but this might be too much to do to get there, that sort of thing.
So not having the ice cream or the indulgence or whatever it is, possibly, maybe the price is too high when you get there. But the other component that you mentioned, I lose that 20 pounds and thought that the world was going to be, considerably different. When in fact, the only thing that's happened is you've lost the 20 pounds. Have you made a psychic or emotional shift? Have you addressed what was driving the initial component to begin with?
Yeah, you might not have been happy at all.
Because you could be happy even with the 20 pounds.
You can.
Right.
And that's the thing. Yeah.
So
I work with people like that all the time.
It's an inside job. Yeah. What's going on in your inside that's creating these feelings, right?
Yeah. And some of these things can happen, they can happen in not in sequence. What's the thing? Concurrently.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like if you're working on your relationship sort of thing, you may decide that, you do want more variety and that sort of thing and opening up your relationship. But it's still important to work on your other relationship if, if that's where you're coming from, because, we've seen it. That's sometimes where people lose focus, right?
True.
Yeah. So then the other part is of this being happy having it is, can you tolerate your happiness? Can you allow yourself to be happy and enjoy it?
Interesting. That sounds like something I would say. Can you tolerate your happiness?
That's probably where it came from.
Yeah. So what does that mean? Can you tolerate your happiness? Of course you can tolerate your happiness, can't you?
Yeah, but like you said, if you were looking for, like, say you're dating and you want this amazing relationship, you find this amazing thing, but then, like you said before, it's like you're waiting for the next shoe to drop, or you're creating issues maybe even to sabotage it, because you're like, oh, well, I've never been in a relationship, and you want to kill them off. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, for sure. You say you want to be in this loving relationship, you get it, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, like, I'm really present. And now you might even feel vulnerable being in a secure relationship. You might say, well, what happens if I lose it? Or, this, that, and the other thing. And we start making these wonderful calamities. And in fact, can I tolerate having it? Can I tolerate actually being happy in it? Or do I feel as though the fear of losing it is so fantastic that I will self-sabotage it? I will destroy it so that I don't have to worry about the loss of it. It's classic. It's often.
Yeah. Did that ever happen to you?
I can tell by the way you're smiling, you're suggesting that it has happened to me in this relationship. So for those of you who don't know, I came from a place of not so secure attachment. Historically, it wasn't that way. And I reminded Tara for the first 4 or 5 years of our relationship that she should not count on me being there, that I would not
don't fall in love with me. Don't fall in love with me. That was your favorite thing. Well, it's funny because I think, you joke about it's been like 100 years or whatever that we've been together. But even your mother, I think, thinks we've been together for a long time, because I went and spent time with her yesterday and she was talking about your Asia trip. Hi, Mom. And she was saying that it was like over 5 years ago. And I was like, it was not 5 years ago, because Andre and I were dating. And so it has to be within 5 years. Right. So I just thought that was funny. Anyways.
Interesting. Yeah, but it brings up a good point. And that is the idea that with loving, caring partners, or even without, but we can change over time, right? So what I initially objected to, I was able to realize and then tolerate and enjoy that happiness.
Yeah, I think the people are making such really nice comments about us, the synergy between us, and it's so nice.
You should see what we're like when the TV goes off here, when the monitor goes off.
No, it's not. We're pretty good. I mean, I think we always say this, and it's not. It's true. Everybody has their down moments, right?
Sure.
I think sometimes we have blips when we are apart for a little while, and then we come back together, and it's like sharing the same space, and it's like we don't really know how to interact or something.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the oxytocin isn't quite where it should be, but it's interesting how we can allow for that and come back and reconnect. Yeah.
It's communication. I mean, you taught me this. It's like I feel safe to be, like I said earlier, I feel safe to be vulnerable with you. And I don't think, maybe I've never really totally felt that way before. And it's interesting because it's also in an environment where there's not all the conditions for being safe, or we don't have the traditional ones, right, the marital, the contracts, or the monogamy contract, or any of that stuff. But yet it feels the most safe and secure.
Yeah, those constructs that we generally have been told are going to offer us those kind of securities, right? Like a marriage contract, which, who hasn't been divorced, right? I've had 2 of them myself already. Those things don't really give you the sense of security. It's got to come from within. And we are each other's secure base, our safe haven to be able to do that. Talk about the communication style. It's interesting because not long ago, we thought that we might be well served in our relationship if we would have business meetings on occasion. Right? Yeah. So we might say, 4 times a year, we're going to meet, and it's going to be, kind of like a business meeting. We're going to bring our notepads and whatever, if necessary, and we're going to try and review different aspects of our relationship as though we were simply shareholders in it, right? So, how's our level of communication? What's our level of intimacy? Let's take stock of our relationship and find out where we might be, in the black and where we might be in the red. And going at it in a very, it sounds kind of funny to do it that way, but having it in a very transactional kind of way can also remove some of the emotional aspects of it, right? And say, well, these are issues that we need to address. So we still have some issue of insecurity or jealousy or inconsideration, whatever it might be, and how might we be able to table that? So as business partners, like, okay, well, let's address this issue. Yeah, so it's kind of fun to do it that way.
Yeah. And it's why, this is why we're excited to bring you guys the program we're putting together, because it took us time to get to this spot. I think we're uniquely positioned because you're a therapist and I'm now a coach, and, we've been working on this, but we want to share this with you guys to make it easier for you to, to master your relationships. So that's why we're so excited about what we're doing. So we promised at the beginning, or maybe I didn't mention at the beginning, that there was something special at the end.
Is there?
Yes, there is something special.
And what might that be?
Well, you, my love, have opened up time in your calendar to talk to some fine people. I think you opened at least 3 spots or so.
3 spots.
So grab them while they're hot to talk about how people can get more in their life and relationships and get exactly what it is that we were talking about today. Yeah. So that's a good segue. Aw, you guys are so nice. Let me just open up. So... Yay, there you are. So people can book a complimentary consultation call with André. So you'd like them to just email you, you some dates and times that work for you. It's a 45-minute call. It's complimentary. And it's awesome. And you get this fine gent, or you can send him a direct message through Facebook or me, and we'll get you hooked up. So that's gonna be awesome. That's a pretty unique opportunity.
Sure is.
So so thanks for listening, everybody. And thanks for the awesome comments, and thank you for being amazing.
Thank you, Tara.
Co-host with me.
You too.
I love doing this.
Yeah, this is great.
So like I said, thanks for listening. And if you have some actions that you're going to be taking to get more, we'd love to hear from you. Give some ideas and give some hints to other people, because
and tell us, also what doesn't work for you, right?
Oh yes.
You can often say, well, I tried this thing and it went south. That's good information too, right?
I would love more touch and more hugs. I just love it. So let's get to that now that we're back in the same space. All right. Thank you, everyone, and have a great week. And reach out anytime and grab one of those spots with André.
Okay.
We'll drop the link in the chat after. See you.
Thank you. Bye.